And what you might want to do is you can always I always like to add a little interesting pattern as I go. And for example, like before, while I was talking, I just suddenly thought of it. Let's give this guy's arm kind of like some type of mutation and give some type of other colors to it. So what you could do is, again, with the continuous off, we gave this guy, we just add this mutated arms to him, and have these little chunks that follows. And maybe you could even add it to his face a little bit, give him this type of scar looking face. Yeah, I'm not sure if that works, so let's not do that. Let's do it for the leg as well. These are little fun stuff that I actually like to do. When I'm coloring. And especially since when I'm doing concept, I just want to add these little designs and color design here and there. One other thing you could do is, after this step, make a new layer. I usually make a layer for things like patterns or little texture details, for example. Just little things here and there. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. For example, fingernails. Just little. I usually use this layer for areas where I might or might not want to put, so I can always turn it on and off, depending. For example, a fingernail, turn it on and off like this. And you could always design patterns as well. There's clothing. These little minor detail will add a lot to the picture in terms of completeness. And just choose some color here. If you want, you can always also mix things up and choose and add photo textures to it. Well, be careful when you're adding photo textures. Sometimes because you're doing cell shading, such a realistic photo texture might or might not work. Or you might want to set it as a low opacity when you're doing a photo texture, just so that you have a hint of what's going on. I'm adding the rim to this clothing. See if it works. Seems to be okay. Again, coming up with design as we go. Let's add a little bit more. This belt here looks a little bit boring, so let's add some gold rim to it. And you could zoom closer. Just add a gold trim to areas that you think will look nice. I'm actually not sure if this will look nice, but let's just do it anyways. Oops. You notice that since I'm doing a new layer, it actually went outside the edge. You can always go back to this layer and do the gold here if you want. I'm not sure if the gold actually works. Let's just, at least not at that area. Just add it somewhere else and test around. Again, a lot of times, not just with this lesson, most of the coloring and drawing is all about trial and error. Just what you think, what looks good, what might work, sometimes what doesn't work. So let's do a little lighter shade of brown here. It's not really showing up, so let's go for lighter. Just to add variations to your drawings. I'll also add these little maybe metal circular things on it to see if it works. Now just to give it that little extra touch of detail. So if you turn this layer on and off, you see a difference to the picture. It just added more depth to it. So let's move on to the next part. Right now for this method, even though it kind of looks complete, the color is a little bit dirty in some way because of the gray area in the line art. And one thing that I love about overlay layer, for example, you put an overlay layer above all the layers still within the masking group, and you set it as overlay, and just choose a soft wide brush, a big brush, and just play around by adding a somewhat light color to the highlight area. I'm not sure if you could see it on the video recording, but you notice that this one has before the overlay layer was applied, is a little bit of somewhat dirty shade, but if you do it, it gives a much cleaner shade color. And the color that you choose in general is the color of the light area, the color of the light that you're imagining this to be. So in here, the light is somewhat in this type of color. And you could, for the shadow area, you could always choose a different color. I usually choose colors around this area. Unless I really want to darken areas, then I choose darker color. I usually choose these type of color just to change the shade a little bit. You see, I'm adding a little bit of blue to it. And this is basically what you do for this overlay layer. What you could also do is add one more overlay layer and just select parts that you want to focus on. So you go to a base. For example, I want to focus on the hair to make it even glow a little bit. I just select the hair, and since I had the continuous off, it select everything the same color. Let's just keep it at that. Set this layer to overlay and give it still within the same general tone. Let's make it even a little bit, even a little bit brighter, like that. You turn it on and off, you can see what just happened. And this is basically that for the overlay. One thing and then next step you do, and this is optional for depending on what you want. I usually like to add a rim of highlights on this character. It really pops the character out. And I tend to choose either color dodge or linear dodge. It really depends. Let's just do linear dodge for now. And all you need is really a little touch of rim highlight to really pop the character out just a little bit more. And don't put the highlight everywhere. You could practice and see what works and what not. For example, I'll just I'm imagining another light source that's coming somewhat behind this character a little bit, and we'll choose this color. For linear dodge and color dodge, sometimes it's not that easy to predict what the outcome is, so you just have to kind of guess it and then play around. So let's try this. Click, and you see I just gave him a highlight like this, and we'll see what happens if I do color dodge. Color dodge have this kind of more interesting effect, a kind of interesting color mix, which I kind of like. Let's try playing with the hue and saturation, just change it up a bit and see if there's any other cool color that might work. You see, different color, they all work because there's a secondary light source, so that you could always make it justified by choosing whatever color that you think looks good. And let's just keep it at, let's play around with the lightness. It's a bit too bright. Let's just keep it at that. I think looks alright. And for the overlay, I forgot one thing before. Let's add one more overlay. I usually add overlay. Also do overlay for highlights. Just a tad of highlight depending how glossy something is. And I'll choose a color, for example, like this. And for metal, for example, it's a little bit more reflective. So I'll just choose a highlight area and just fill. Just adding these little highlights here and there. And this highlight layer is really optional depending on what you want, what effect you want and how detailed you want to go. And what you can also do is just for face. Face is not as glossy as the metal here, so I'm gonna add highlight, but I'm gonna choose a little bit darker color so that is not as obvious. Just kind of like that, just to give it this little edge, little touch of color. There we go. And this is basically that in terms of coloring. There's just one final step that I usually like to do is, and you could do it above this overlay layer or beneath it depending on situations, but you can always move the layer around, so I'm going to try it above this layer. So what you do is do a multiply. This is where I touch up the line a little bit and go back and just redo little areas of line art, and I choose usually I usually don't go that dark. I choose maybe this type of gray, because this overlay layer, it actually get rid of a lot of the gray area. A lot of the line gets lost. Sometimes you might not want that and you want to go back and fill in little details. So for example, the armpit area, I'll just go back and just touch up little sections here and there. And for these areas that the details might have been lost while I was coloring, I'll just go back and fill. You know, for face, you might want to add a little bit more detail. For areas that you think is important. And where you add clean up the lines is really, again, your own preference. I want to add a little bit more detail in the hair. Just touch up areas that you think needs a little bit more detail. Don't go overboard and just redraw the whole picture.